Rocky IV, 1985, is one of the most beloved films in the Rocky series, marked by the legendary confrontation between Rocky Balboa and Ivan Drago. The film not only brings intense matches in the ring, but also conveys a strong message about determination and friendship. However, it is unfortunate that many stars who appeared in this classic are no longer with us. In today's video, we will remember the 14 Rocky IV actors who have passed away, looking back at their careers and the legacy they left for millions of fans. Burt Young as Paulie Penino. Burt Young, whose real name is Gerald Tommaso DeLuise, was born on April 30, 1940, in Queens, New York. He was 45 years old when he joined Rocky IV in 1985 as Paulie Penino, Rocky Balboa's hot-tempered but loyal brother-in-law. The role brought him closer to a global audience, especially after he received an Oscar nomination for the original Rocky, 1976, a rare honor for a supporting actor beloved for his heartbreakingly realistic performance. Few people know that before his on-screen fame, Young was a U.S. Marine and a professional boxer, winning 32 of his 34 fights. The years of discipline in the military and in the ring forged the rugged look and tired but determined eyes that were an essential part of the Paulie character he portrayed. But behind the glamour of Rocky, his real life was as dark as the characters in the movies. In 1974, his wife, Gloria, died suddenly, leaving him with their young daughter. The private grief caused Young to retreat into a quiet life and rarely mentioned his family in interviews. During the 1980s, he also suffered a financial crisis due to a series of supporting roles, box office failures, and even considered quitting acting altogether. However, he persevered, appearing in films such as Once Upon a Time in America, 1984, Back to School, 1986, and then Win-Win, 2011, often playing tough characters that closely mirrored his own personality. Burt Young's life off the set was far from peaceful. He owned a restaurant in the Bronx, ran the 1984 New York Marathon, and in his later years found joy in painting and writing. Some of his artwork has even been exhibited in international galleries. His paintings appeared in a scene from the 2006 film Rocky Balboa, a subtle symbol of the intersection between art and real life. However, old age did not spare him. In his later years, Burt Young was said to have been battling heart disease, atrial fibrillation, and atherosclerosis, which severely weakened his health. On October 8, 2023, he passed away in Los Angeles at the age of 83. The official cause of death was cardiac arrest, with contributing factors including a heart attack. He was buried at Mount St. Mary's Cemetery in Flushing, Queens, a peaceful resting place in the heart of New York, not far from where he was born and raised. His net worth was estimated at $2 million, a modest sum for a film legend with a career spanning nearly 50 years. Leroy Neiman, as himself, Leroy Neiman, born Leroy Leslie Runquist, was born on June 8, 1921, in St. Paul, Minnesota. In 1985, at the age of 64, he made a surprise cameo as himself in Rocky IV, lending authenticity to the boxing scenes. A moment that stunned audiences but was perfectly in keeping with his passion for the sport and his public image. Neiman's childhood was not easy. His biological father abandoned the family, his mother remarried several times, and he was forced to take his stepfather's last name at a young age. After World War II, he studied art and began his career at Playboy magazine, where he illustrated for 50 years and created the famous character Femlin. He also traveled the world, painting for the Olympics, the Super Bowl, boxing matches, Las Vegas casinos, jazz nights, and even wildlife portraits. With his ability to capture vivid moments in bold strokes, Neiman quickly became known as the world's first great sports artist. In 1957, he married Janet Byrne, his partner for 55 years until his death. They lived in a historic apartment at the Hotel des Artistes in Manhattan, once home to legends such as Norman Rockwell and Rudolph Valentino. The love and stability that Janet provided was seen as an important emotional support that helped Neiman overcome his personal struggles and continue to focus on his art. Despite his fame and success, with an estimated net worth of $20 million, Leroy Neiman has not been immune to controversy. Art critics have often derided his work as too commercial, accusing him of pandering to the public rather than expressing his true nature as an artist. He was also involved in several copyright lawsuits and property disputes. His lavish lifestyle, complete with his own studio, New York penthouse, and world travel, put considerable financial strain on him in his later years. In 2010, his right leg was amputated due to arterial failure, but he continued to paint. Leroy Neiman died on June 20, 2012 in New York, just 12 days after his 91st birthday, of natural causes. He was buried at Woodlawn Cemetery in the Bronx, the final resting place of many of history's most famous figures. Carl Weathers, professionally known as Apollo Creed, was born on January 14, 1948, in New Orleans. He was 37 when he played Apollo Creed in Rocky IV, 1985, the perfect age to play a proud champion with real emotional depth. Apollo was not only Rocky Balboa's longtime rival, but also a cultural icon, strong, intelligent, and the embodiment of American charisma. The role transformed Carl Weathers from an obscure former NFL player into one of the top action stars of the 1980s. But his life wasn't all glitz and glamour. Weathers went through 3 failed marriages, all of which ended in divorce. Although he rarely spoke about it in public, close friends revealed that he struggled with loneliness behind the scenes. After playing Apollo, he struggled to escape the character's shadow, appearing in action films such as Predator, 1987, and Action Jackson, 1988. Though none of them achieved the same level of success as Rocky, in 1996, while filming his role as Chubbs in Happy Gilmore, Weathers fractured his vertebrae during a stunt. The injury left him in chronic pain for years, a silent physical tragedy for a former elite athlete. However, he continued to work, doing voice acting, television, and once again made a splash as Greef Karga on The Mandalorian from 2019 to 2023, a show that earned him an Emmy nomination at age 70. In real life, Weathers has said that he loved theater more than football, which prompted him to pursue a master's degree in drama while still playing for the Oakland Raiders. He lived a private life, spending his final years with his longtime partner, Christine Klugian. But on February 1, 2024, Carl Weathers passed away in his sleep at the age of 76. Although his family described it as a peaceful passing, the public was left in mourning as there was no official cause of death, with speculation that he had suffered complications from atherosclerotic heart disease. His remains were cremated, and a few months later, on August 29, 2024, he was officially honored with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, ensuring that the name Apollo Creed would forever be remembered among the stars. His estimated net worth is around $8 million, accumulated from decades of acting, directing, voiceover, and commercials. Tony Burton as Tony Duke Evers. Tony Burton was born on March 23, 1937 in Flint, Michigan. He played Tony Duke Evers, the devoted trainer of Apollo Creed and later Rocky Balboa in the Rocky film series. When he appeared in Rocky IV in 1985, he was 48 years old and one of only 4 actors to appear in all 6 original Rocky films. Although he was always a supporting character, Duke was the silent fighting spirit, the cheerleader, the motivator, and the pain before every fight. However, Tony Burton's real life was no less brutal than the boxing ring. He was a Golden Gloves light heavyweight boxing champion in Michigan and a talented high school football player, but his glory was short-lived. In 1958, after a mediocre professional boxing career, he turned to crime and was sentenced to more than 3 years in prison for burglary. It was in prison that Burton found a new purpose in life. Through acting-based therapy programs, he discovered his talent for acting and completed his degree at the University of California while in rehab. After his release, he started over, performing in small theaters in Los Angeles and gradually making a name for himself with challenging supporting roles. He appeared in Assault on Precinct 13, 1976, Stir Crazy, and The Shining, 1980, where he impressed not only with his acting but also with his behind-the-scenes chess performance that outplayed director Stanley Kubrick. Despite his talent and appearances on television shows like The Rockford Files, Twin Peaks, and The A-Team, Burton never quite escaped Duke's shadow. But he didn't mind. For him, surviving, acting, and being loved by audiences was a worthy reward. However, his final years were filled with suffering. His son, Martin, died of a heart attack in 2014 at the age of 43. Burton himself had been battling diabetes and related complications for many years. In the last year of his life, he was frequently hospitalized, his health failing without access to the best treatment. On February 26, 2016, he died of complications from pneumonia at the age of 78. He leaves behind his wife, Ray, and 3 children, and the grieving Rocky fan community. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at just $1.5 million. Her real name is Sylvia Meals, and her stage name is Marianne Creed. Sylvia Meals was born on June 13, 1943 in Los Angeles, California. She played the most memorable role of her life, Marianne Creed, wife of Apollo Creed, in Rocky II, and returned with deep emotion at the age of 41 in Rocky IV, 1985. In the film, she portrayed a strong, resilient woman, devastated when her husband fell in the ring in front of millions of viewers. It was not just a role, but also a haunting farewell that left a deep impression. Sylvia Meals' career, however, was oddly short-lived in an industry that has been notoriously unforgiving towards women of color. Before her Rocky films, she appeared in a little-known TV movie called Harambe, a project that has largely been forgotten in Hollywood history. But it was her role as Marianne Creed that gave her her moment to shine. Despite her limited screen time, Sylvia's every appearance left a strong impression. Her determined gaze as she watched her husband enter the ring, and her firm voice pleading with Rocky to stop the fight in Rocky IV, are testaments to her strong emotional range. However, after Rocky IV, Sylvia's acting career almost stopped. She has not appeared in any notable films or television shows since. Some sources believe that she chose to focus on her family life after her divorce from her ex-husband, Robert L. Meals, in 1979. Others believe that, like many black actresses of her generation, she was limited by a lack of roles and opportunities in an industry still steeped in racial and gender bias. It is unfortunate that Sylvia's talent was not fully recognized. With only 4 credited roles throughout her career, she has largely disappeared from public memory. While the male actors of the Rocky series continued to take on leading roles and became cultural icons, Sylvia quietly faded into obscurity, not even being invited back in later installments such as Creed, 2015, where the character of Marianne was replaced and played by a different actress. Sylvia's life ended quietly on March 29, 2011, in her hometown of Los Angeles. She died at the age of 67 after a long battle with cancer, in a silent and sorrowful manner. There was no lavish funeral, no memorial in the press. Her death was known only to a small group of Rocky fans, and like her role in the film, it was quiet, poignant, and tragically forgotten. Michael Pataki as Nikolai Koloff. Michael Pataki was born on January 16, 1938, in Youngstown, Ohio. In Rocky IV, in 1985. At the age of 47, he played Nikolai Koloff, the cold, stern, and powerful manager of the towering boxer Ivan Drago. Although only a supporting role, Pataki left a lasting impression as a tough, domineering character who symbolized the cold grip of Cold War politics on the boxing ring. Born to Hungarian immigrants, Pataki studied political science and theater at the University of Southern California, before launching his career with a performance in The Zoo Story at the Edinburgh Festival. He quickly became a familiar face on television, appearing in a long list of popular series including Star Trek, The Flying Nun, Batman, Mission Impossible, McCloud, and most memorably as the Klingon Korax, who instigates the infamous bar fight in the episode The Trouble with Tribbles. Behind his powerful on-screen persona, however, was a quiet and sometimes precarious life. Pataki never publicly disclosed any details about his wife, children, or personal relationships. He kept a low profile to the point that many people didn't know he directed and produced films like Cinderella, 1977, and Mansion of the Doomed, 1976. Although he appeared in dozens of films, from Airport 77 and Love at First Bite to Halloween 4, most of his roles were supporting or B-movie roles, preventing his career from reaching the heights of some of his contemporaries. Pataki battled cancer in his later years. He died on April 15, 2010, at the age of 72. His death did not cause a stir, but it left a void in the hearts of fans of classic horror films and the Rocky series. Before his death, he completed the voice of the animated character George Liquor in Cans Without Labels, which was released posthumously as a tribute to his legacy. At the time of his death, Michael Pataki's estimated net worth was around $1 million, a modest sum that reflected a rich but tumultuous career. His life exemplified a rare breed of artist, dedicated, quiet, yet powerful. Stu Nahan as sports commentator. Stu Nahan was born on June 23, 1926, in Los Angeles and debuted in the Rocky series as a sports commentator, a role he continued to play in all 6 original films, including Rocky IV, 1985. When he was 59 years old, in Rocky IV, it was Nahan's deep, experienced voice that brought the ring to life as Rocky faced Ivan Drago, making the fight feel like a real boxing match. What many people don't know is that before he became the voice of these cinematic confrontations, Stu Nahan was a star goalie at McGill University in Canada and signed with the legendary Toronto Maple Leafs hockey team in 1946. From a professional athlete, he turned to television, taking on beloved roles on children's shows like Skipper Stu and Captain Philadelphia, characters that have become indelibly etched into the childhood memories of countless viewers. His radio and television career spanned more than 3 decades, including stints at major stations such as KABC, KNBC, and KTLA, as well as radio stations such as KFWB. He was not only a sports anchor, but also a commentator for the Philadelphia Flyers and NFL games. This long career earned him deep respect and an estimated net worth of $2 million, a well-deserved reward for decades of dedication. However, beyond the limelight, Stu Nahan faced the toughest battle of his life. In 2006, he was diagnosed with lymphoma, a malignant blood cancer. Despite treatment, his body gradually weakened due to chemotherapy. He passed away on December 26, 2007, at the age of 81 in Studio City, California. There was no scandal or controversy. He left this world the way he lived, calmly, professionally, and loved. James Brown as himself. James Brown, whose real name is James Joseph Brown, was born on May 3, 1933, in Barnwell, South Carolina. In Rocky IV, in 1985, at the age of 52, he did not play a fictional character but appeared as himself, James Brown as himself, performing the rousing hit, Living in America, in Apollo Creed's epic debut before his fateful battle with Ivan Drago. The film became one of the most iconic musical cinematic moments of the 1980s, when soul music met boxing to create a culturally iconic event. But behind the glamour was a life filled with turmoil, tragedy, and controversy. James Brown grew up in abject poverty, shining shoes, stealing to make ends meet, and serving time in prison for juvenile detention. He rose to become a musical legend through his extraordinary talent and unyielding will. But that same intensity also led to his own personal downfall. He endured 3 failed marriages, was involved in multiple incidents of domestic violence, fathered several children out of wedlock, and was frequently embroiled in custody battles, child support disputes, and even allegations of sexual abuse and assault. Brown also struggled with drug addiction, particularly PCP and cocaine, which increasingly destabilized his behavior. At one point, he drove across state lines in a paranoid frenzy, was pursued by police, and was eventually sentenced to 6 years in prison. Though he served just over 2, his status as a musical icon never waned. But in his personal life, he was frequently in the spotlight for violence, guns, and erratic behavior. During the last year of his life, James Brown suffered from acute pneumonia, which led to heart failure. He died on December 25, 2006, Christmas Day, at the age of 73. His death shocked his fans, as he had performed just days before. His funeral lasted several days and was held at 3 separate venues, including Harlem's famous Apollo Theater, a fitting tribute to a distinguished career. However, he was not buried immediately. His body was kept in a temperature-controlled room for nearly 2 months due to a legal dispute over his assets and status between his children and his last partner, Tommy Ray Heine, whose legitimacy as his legal wife is still disputed. Although James Brown amassed an estimated $100 million fortune from his music career, much of that money was lost to lawsuits, legal fees, and mismanagement. After his death, his will became the subject of a bitter 15-year legal battle, making the division of his assets and legacy one of the most complicated and scandalous disputes in American music history.